Right. Hi, Nivas. Welcome to the show. This is the SL Pro show, and I'm glad to bring on board Nivas. Nivas Ravichandran has a fantastic experience. He is the product marketeer for the CRM Software Freshsales, part of Freshworks. Freshworks, if you didn't know, is based in Chennai, India, and has over 100,000 companies using the software to keep businesses running smoothly. Freshworks also crossed $100 million revenue in 2018, and Nivas has been a driving force behind. Now, we will be talking to Nivas about his background in marketing, in sales. Also, he's organizing at the moment a high velocity sales summit, an event that features strategies and insights from 30 plus sales leaders, influencers, and entrepreneurs to help businesses achieve high velocity sales. So Nivas, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks, Raj. Thanks for having me on the SL Pro show.
Fantastic. Well, listen, let's get started with a little bit about yourself and whom do you work for. So in your own words, tell us a little bit about yourself and the role you play in the business.
Right. I think we are a company called Freshworks, and as Raj mentioned, we're based in Chennai, and we're a customer. We started off as a customer support software called Freshdesk, but now we have softwares which cater to different parts of the customer engagement lifecycle. Like, let's say it could be sales. We have a sales CRM software. We have a support software. We have a marketing CRO tool which is in place. We have a caller, like a calling automation software, and then there's also a chat platform. So we're a SaaS company with a software suite which aims at customer engagement. So, and I think we've been in business for about 8 years now. I've been with them for about 4 years, and so I take care of marketing for the Freshsales, the CRM product, and that's where we're running the High Velocity Sales Summit.
That's fantastic. Tell me, just before we get into the High Velocity Sales Summit, tell me a little bit about the USPs of the company. Obviously, whether they call it Freshsales or Freshworks, I mean, whichever one you think is appropriate. Could you give us a little bit of USP and what makes them stand out?
Right. I think when we started off as, we definitely had just a single product, right? We didn't start off as a multi-product company. When we started off as Freshdesk, and it was this where we wanted to make sure we had a better a software which provided better user experience in terms of that's the word, the reason why we called it Fresh. And I think it was also where we wanted to make sure all other channels, like especially social at that time, was not really covered in a lot of the platforms which were offering at that point of time. And so we started off Freshdesk, and it was also fairly affordable in comparison to the other softwares in the market. Then once we started moving on to other ones, especially with like Fresh, we launched Freshservice, which is an internal ID service management software. And then when we launched Freshsales, I think we realized a fairly large problem present in the CRM space, right? There are a lot of CRMs where you just treat the CRM as more of a storage database, right? Where you're not allowed to perform any of your basic functionalities like email, call, or just the basic ones you do day in and day out is not being, it's not allowed within the CRM. So for that, you will have to start integrating 3 or other 4 tools and probably have to look at multiple screens. So one of the reasons why we launched Freshsales was that where we were using a popular CRM software back then, and then we had to look at multiple screens at the same time to be performing our sale. But then when we moved into Freshsales, I think, or when we launched Freshsales, the whole objective was we wanted to bring in phone and email, the most basic channels of communication, into the CRM, and then other other features or functionalities like lead scoring, automation, and like even event capture should be present within the CRM, so that you don't really have to be looking at different screens to even perform your basic functions.
Understood. And how much do you rely on third party for integrations versus your own tools internally for integrations for the CRM tools?
Right. I think integrations are definitely important. Just that when we mean I mean present within the CRM, we're talking about most of the basic functions which should be present within the CRM. I think the CRM should probably be stopped looking at it just as a storage base or more like a storage dump yard, but rather perform actions. But I think we do have fairly strong integrations happening with Segment, Mailchimp, and a lot of other tools. So yeah, I think definitely for something like a CRM software, I think integrations is definitely fairly crucial.
That's really exciting. I think you're absolutely right. The CRM tools are now the heart and soul of marketeers across the world. So without a good CRM, I don't think any of the marketeers can actually exist. As such, your tool, and there are obviously many niches for CRMs, is there a particular niche or niche which you are focusing on as a CRM provider, or is it open up to any company as such?
Right. I think as a company itself, we are focused at SMB and mid market. We do not go after, or I mean, the software right now does not cater to enterprises, and I think we believe that SMBs will definitely the number of SMBs that are coming up is going to definitely explode, and we want to make sure we are there as an affordable solution which does the job with a great customer with a great user experience, right? You don't want. I mean, there've been a lot of clunky tools which have been there and have accomplished what you can do, but with Freshworks, I think you'll have a great user experience and make sure it gets done. So I think we've mostly catered to the SMB space and mid mid market as well.
I can't agree more with you. I mean, when I joined into the internet world, it was Telnet on all these ugly looking chat platforms and stuff where you could hardly sit there for more than 5 minutes without a massive headache. And I think usability, user experience is so important today. The more you can make it easy, as I say, the grandmother test, if you can get a grandmom to use it, then you are all good. I can't agree more with you on there. Obviously, Nivas, you have come in as a marketeer, and we're really keen to understand your role as well. So tell us a little bit about sort of how you help them. Is it mainly driven through events, discussions? What is that you do on a daily basis as well within the company?
Right. I think you might know how the CRM space is, right? Like when you probably go to like a platform like G2 Crowd and look at the software grid which they have for CRM, it's extremely crowded. And for us to have that sort of visibility and for us to even get into the decision making criteria for anyone, let's say if for any consumer, right? When you ask him what are the different software you would remember in a CRM, they'd probably remember 3 or 4 names. So we wanted to make sure we get into that decision making criteria, and that's where we started off. So I've been focusing since the last year on mostly on top of the funnel traffic or acquisition for Freshsales, and so a couple of the initiatives which we've been driving is the webinar series and there's this interview series which we do where we've interviewed top sales leaders from different companies. We call it the secret sauce to sales, and then the recent one, which is the high velocity sales summit, where we're putting together different speakers and different I mean more like insights from different companies coming together on a single event, and you don't need to really be traveling as well because it's an online summit and it's free, of course.
I mean, I'm really keen to understand, how did you get these people on board in the first place? These are really high profile people, founders and VPs of large companies, fast growing startups. Most of them have done series A, B, C, and beyond. So how did you get these people in the first place?
Right. I think one of the interesting things for especially the interviews, right, for the Secret Sauce to Sales series, one of the key things is that people should need to realize that the founder gets a lot of attention in the company. Even within Freshworks, a lot of people know Girish, but it might be a little difficult for someone else to be aware of, let's say, our VP of sales or so. So what we decided was we made sure the persona we went behind was not the founder, but more of the VP of sales. And for them to have, they probably have not been through a lot of interviews, but then it was also very important for them to showcase their story. And I think that was pretty crucial for us and for them as well. We made sure we put them in good light. I mean, the first few ones were the most critical ones because we didn't know what worked or what did not. But I think once we were able to bring on board the first one or two speakers, then from there, it was fairly straightforward, or maybe just a process which we identified and we were able to replicate.
And would you find these people through a cold email or through introductions? How would you get them in the first place?
Right. Majority of them were cold emails. I think social has played a fairly significant role. LinkedIn definitely does, where I think LinkedIn's been the most critical thing in terms of understanding what their title is. So probably we would start off with, maybe it's more like account-based selling, right? If you want to understand, let's say, Slack's sales process, we look at the employees at Slack and we look at, okay, who are some certain sales leaders. We look at if they've written something or if they've spoken at interviews. Are there someone who very comfortable speaking at maybe a summit or a webinar or an interview? So that's one of the things which needs to be checked. And then because it just makes it a little more easier for them to come on board as well. It's not that we want someone who's definitely done an interview before. But from there, what we do is we send them a request asking them, hey, we're running this blog series where we're featuring sales teams of different companies, and we thought it would be great to interview you for the series. And so one of the pretty important things, right? It's the time crunch that they have, and we make sure we tell them how long it's going to take and what is needed from their side. So we tell them we don't ask numbers or metrics in terms which they are not willing to share, and also we tell them it's not going to take more than 30 minutes of their time. So when you make that clear, right, I think that's something which people mistake even at in a let's say a cold call. You should make sure what you're selling to them is or making them buy is what you're buying is time from them. So make sure you get like the 30 minutes time slot. And then from there is your next, you can send them the questionnaire, you can do all of the other things, but make sure you get that time from them and then move forward from there.
That's absolutely fantastic. I love that. I love the fact that you respect the time. You can do a lot of research before you actually get on. It's
Right.
not like a
Oh, yeah.
spray and pray strategy. You actually are pinpointing these people more like sniping as opposed to like, spraying and praying. So that's really awesome. Do you also suggest that, when people who want to do something similar to your replicate some of your strategies, that the brand which you have with Freshworks actually helps a lot? Or do you think the strategy can apply to anybody who's maybe in a very early stage startup as well?
Right. I think, so two things, right? When someone's trying to replicate the webinars or the interview strategy, I've been asked this question a couple of times. So the most important thing is to make sure which persona you're targeting, right? Especially when you're someone like Slack, right? What happens is everyone uses Slack. So make sure you target one or two personas and then go after them. Like, let's say if if Slack feels a lot of engineers use Slack, then I think they should probably do the series focused on just engineers. Or maybe if they think HR teams are the guys or maybe the IT teams are the decision makers, they should probably just do webinars focused on let's say IT teams. It could even be for the case of Zoom, right? It's a very cross-functional tool, and different set of personas use it. Like, let's say engineering team uses it for getting on calls, where founders use it for getting on meetings, marketing team uses it for webinars and other purposes. So it's just that if you can identify your persona and make sure you speak in probably their language, I think then it makes sense. The second thing being, if I think I really wouldn't say Freshworks was brand really not everyone was aware of Freshworks back then, but it definitely did add credibility in the second or third step. But what I would recommend is a good a good outreach would really help get you that entry point. But after that, if you're really diligent and make sure you've got the right system in place and make sure you execute it well and show them some results, I think the brand is just an add-on, but a good process would kick in as well.
I can't agree more with you. I think I like the way you've actually strategized the whole idea and made it simple for a lot of startups who want to kind of replicate some of that ideas. Just to kind of go a little bit deeper into the strategy of Freshworks and Freshsales itself, could you perhaps tell us a little bit about how much work do you actually kind of do on like content marketing versus direct sales versus face-to-face? I mean, I know this is not really your sphere, as it were. Overall, you're more focused on these engagement opportunities on the top of the funnel, for example. But just as a general, can you give us some guidelines on that, please?
I think we're fairly we're very highly inbound driven, where majority of our sales comes in through inbound, either through our SEO efforts or our organic, like the articles which we write, or through Google Ads. So that's where we've been getting majority of our results. But I think now we've also been having like a mid-market team that focuses on bringing certain companies on board. But yeah, I'm not sure if I'm allowed to share a ratio or any of those specific things. But I think it would probably be Google Ads, organic, and yeah, the blogs and other things to a fairly small extent.
That's really impressive. I mean, obviously you mentioned you can't mention numbers, but in terms of like, as I understand, there are 100,000 companies working with you at Freshworks. How many of them would be on Freshsales, for example? Would you be able to kind of give us a rough ballpark number?
So we have about I think we're that's maybe a slightly older number, but I think we've definitely crossed a larger number. We would probably wait for an official announcement from them. But I think Freshsales alone has about close to 15,000, or I think we've crossed the number as well, 15,000 plus customers present with Freshsales itself.
That's both like the startups and the mid-market as well, that combined together.
Right. Yeah, it's just everything put together. We don't. I don't think we have the split up. At least I don't have it. So yeah.
Got it. I mean, could you share some other techniques which you use personally to engage? Obviously, inbound is a very important part of the strategy overall, and I love the way you are hustling your way on LinkedIn, on Facebook groups. I see you're popping up all the time. Would you say there are other areas, for example, which you have been doing recently, which has really engaged people? I see your updates regularly. I see the interviews you're doing. All really high power, all very engaging content there. And also the content then goes out to different channels. For example, could you maybe mention strategies which are linked to that, for example, or separately, or maybe follow up that content with other ways you can distribute them on different channels, for instance?
Yes, I think one of the challenges which a lot of companies definitely face is that they do create a lot of content, but the distribution is a fairly difficult nut to crack. And when they realize, or when they find the distribution part of the puzzle difficult, they say content marketing does not work. So I think at least over the couple of years, we've definitely stepped up the type of things which we've been doing with content marketing and distribution as such. It's this, right? Cold outreach. I think this is one of the biggest lessons which I've learned over the year is people don't hate cold outreach. People just hate poorly customized cold outreach. So if you can make sure your outreach, even for individuals, is customized and you are targeting them with the right message, people definitely do respond to it in terms of, I mean, even one-to-one messaging, right? I still do a lot of that where and it's not like I do a spray and pray, where I make sure, like let's say when we identify a set of people who we think will benefit from the particular webinar, or even let's say a summit, we target them individually just to make sure, will they be interested in it, or would they be willing to share? Or it's this, right, where when you put something out that people are willing to put their name attached to it, then it amplifies. Like for example, even for the high velocity sales summit, some of the folks we've brought on board are really big, and expecting them to share the content is a big ask, right? Because when they're definitely supporting you and your brand. So what we wanted to make sure was the designs and probably the content and even the web page and everything end to end should provide a definite wow experience. And let's say even when they're willing to, when they see the design which we've put together, like the individual speaker cards which we've been sharing on social, if you check out our LinkedIn pages, you'd be seeing it day in and day out. So that's something which the speakers have come back and said, hey, this looks really cool, and I'm happy to be sharing this. So make sure, even when you're creating content, when you're working with, let's say, someone else, it's just that they should be really comfortable by the work you've put in, and they when they realize that you've put in the effort, then it automatically translates into results. I can speak about specific channels as well, but yeah, Raj, I'll if you'd want me to.
Yeah, absolutely, go right ahead.
Sure. I think so. We've definitely tried a few channels here and there. So it's just that not a single channel works every time. Like, for example, for content, I think channels like Growth Hackers, Q Promote, and probably I think LinkedIn has been a really powerful platform for us. Facebook groups, where very specifically, if you're able to target them and then take it forward, it works very well. There are Slack channels, a lot of Slack channels where they even have a very specific group called Share This or for promotions, and you can make sure. So it's this, right? Don't just be promoting your content out there, but also be engaging with them right then and there, where you're able to, like when they come and ask for a question or let's say help, make sure you do it upfront, pay it forward, and also get solid feedback for the work you're doing. And when it turns out to be good, everyone is willing to share it on their feed. So I think a couple of channels. I think we've used Quora, we've used a lot of channels. Social definitely has helped us a lot. And apart from that, I think a good email, like let's say building a list has also helped us, just like a good old email list. So that's one thing.
I mean, I love the advice there on social channels, which you mentioned, and Quora, for example. Slack is a new one for me. But just to kind of compliment you in design, I can see right now, for example, High Velocity Sales Summit, the branding is incredible. In fact, I've been getting a few of the Facebook advertising as well. So you've actually put budget aside for Facebook advertising. Obviously, I guess I've visited your Freshsales Summit page a few times, so it kind of put a cookie on my computer, on my profile, has been following me, which is great. How do you unlock a budget for a event like this, which obviously is powered by Freshsales, but obviously this is a separate budget which you have unlocked, which is not directly going into, as it were, increasing the sales for Freshsales? So how do you do that as a marketeer? What do you tell your bosses, your directors of sales, for example?
I think I don't know how much of it I'm allowed to share over here, but so I think it's just where we've not really put aside a lot of budget for an event like this, because we know we will be able to drive a certain amount of organic efforts. I think even the Facebook ads was just retargeting, where because you visited the page, the ads are being shown to you. We are looking at bringing on board, because again, going back to our goal of creating more brand awareness, or I think I wouldn't really call it generating top of the funnel leads, but more of the brand awareness part of it. So I think we do have some budget which was set aside for brand, and I think we were able to tap into that for something like this. And comparatively to a physical event, we're able to generate more traction towards something like this, especially with speakers like Nick Maida, Godard Abel, Mark Organ, and let's say even the VPs and the SVPs of companies like Lucidchart, Slack, or Stripe, any of them, right? Bringing them on board for a physical event at a space would have been more difficult. But now we're able to tap into a larger audience in terms of speakers as well as attendees. So I think we were able to crack into the budget as well.
And just for the audience's insight, how do you plan to organize the event? Would it be slots of half an hour, or would you have a panel discussion? How would you be organizing the actual event?
Right. I think we were finding it a little difficult to put together. So just for the audience, all the sessions are going to be pre-recorded, because if you are planning to do one, here's my advice: never do it live, because I've spoken to enough people who are trying to do it live, and it's very difficult to pull it off, especially with the availability of all these people. But what we're trying to make sure is there's enough engagement points at different places, so that it feels like just that there might not be a quick Q&A session at the end, but we're trying to make sure there's enough engagement throughout the summit. And sorry, what was your question, Raj?
So would you have, for example, panels? I guess not. I mean, it's going to be more sort of slots.
Right. I think we've kind of restricted it to interviews and presentations for now. So if it was about their individual sales strategy, like, I mean, the company sales strategy, we've kept it to interviews. And if there were certain metrics which they want to show, or let's say someone like Mikita from PandaDoc, who had a lot of proposals which he wanted to show. So I think that will go into a presentation mode.
That's fantastic. What I love about your strategy is that you've obviously clearly done this several times. You understand this. I love the way you actually mentioned before, not in this part, of just a bit earlier, about how people don't mind cold emailing or cold calling.
Yeah.
What they don't like is when it's not targeting them directly and it's not customized for them. So that's a really, really nice way of putting things across. And, obviously that says that, inbound and outbound are both important strategies for a marketing mix. And that's exactly what we believe in as well. Okay. On that note, Nivas, what we're going to do now is we're going to get into a bit of a quick fire, sort of 5 questions for you. You just come up with ideas and thoughts as you hear them. These questions I haven't told you before, so they might be a little bit of a curveball sometimes, but they should be very straightforward. So the first one is, what is one of the tools which stand out for you apart from Freshworks and Freshsales, which you use for your marketing, inbound or outbound?
That's a tricky one, because I think most of the prospecting and everything else we do within Freshsales. So even like, let's say when we're handling the requests that comes in through, I think Zoom as such has been a really good tool for us, because for these interviews and other things, but I don't know if that really qualifies under marketing. But yeah, I think I would also probably name Zapier, where we're able to integrate tools where they do not have a native integration to send data from one place, even from things like Google Sheets and other things. It's been able to automate majority of our tasks. So I think I'll actually give it to Zapier.
Zapier is a brilliant tool. In fact, the last week or so, I've been reading through all the documentation to get GoPin leads ready for Zapier. So I can't agree more. It's a brilliant tool. Right. Good choice there. Okay, second question for you. What is or are myths in selling or marketing you wish you knew before or you completely disagree with?
Myths in selling. I think we probably, this is a slightly tricky one, but I think I'll probably go back to the old one, right? Where people kind of said, hey, you're not allowed to do cold outreach for speakers, or probably you're supposed to, it's not every time that you need to pay a speaker, or it's not something that you should only do it through I don't know, I mean, like a referral approach, or maybe not even have bring speakers on board. So I think it's just that if you're able to structure it very well, and probably telling my like 4 years before when I just started off with Freshworks, I'd probably also one more thing which I would probably tell myself is that always make sure you offer value first before asking for anything. I think that's something which we don't do often, where we kind of get into immediately what our goal is rather than thinking of what their goal is. So even from the webinars in the last, which we did throughout the year last year, we made sure we offered value first, even before we asked something. So I think that definitely helped us out. And this is probably one thing which I'll definitely go back and redo.
Well, value first for the people you want to get things out of is amazing. I can't agree with you more. I think it's also, the idea of good karma. If you
Yeah.
believe in karma points, you get the karma points up front, then, what else can you ask for? You'll definitely get value from the other person as well. So that's a really good point there. Third question for you. What's your top go-to book for marketing or selling?
I actually don't really have like a go-to book for marketing, but I think this is definitely a classic in terms of anyone who's working with a customer or in sales or marketing. It's just the book on How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie. I think that book has just been recommended so many times, but it's just such a great book. And I believe in reading more about understanding businesses. Like I like the book on 0 to 1 by Peter Thiel, because it just breaks down certain principles pretty well. Understanding businesses. But in terms of marketing or sales, I think I'll just go back to How to Win Friends and Influence People.
It's kind of cool how you mentioned that, because that book actually is really old, but it still applies for today's context as well, and probably will be applicable for many years to come.
Of course.
Obviously,
yeah.
Peter Thiel's book, 0 to 1, also is a fantastic book. A great way to, to break down the myths of how he talks about the new app or new thing you build should be 10 times better than the existing one. And that just thing is, obviously he is who he is, right? As a genius. Great books there. Thank you very much for that. Next question for you, and the second last one is, if you had the ability to go back 10 years, what would you do differently from a business perspective? That could be your career, your perspective from a marketing or sales perspective. Everybody has one. Maybe you have something that you thought, well, I wish I knew it before. I would be much better off today.
So I think this is just a very simple thing. I used to be it's just been about 10 years since I've been working. So I was very excited about B2C more than B2B. I never understood how B2B functioned, especially when you're more like a student types. So I think I'd probably go back and just start off in B2B sooner, because I feel there's a lot of opportunities and there's a lot of space or problems which you can really solve. And I think I'll just go back and start building a B2B product 10 years ago.
I can't agree with you more. I think B2B is this kind of gold mine we have today. Right. And if you could get it right, suddenly the influx of cash coming in, whereas B2C is such a cash intensive, B2B could be a really profitable business as well. So I can't agree with you more. Last question for you, and this is just to understand. Question is, finally, where can we learn more about you or your progress? Maybe social media link or a place we can find more about you as you progress in your career. And I know you're going to have sky as a limit for your career. So go on, Nivas, tell us, where can we find you?
Sure. I think to know more about, I'm very active on social, be it LinkedIn or Twitter. And yeah, Facebook, I've kind of kept it for my personal use. So LinkedIn or Twitter would make absolute sense. Send me a request and just tell me that you're part of this webinar or this fireside chat, and I'd definitely accept your request. And I think that's probably the best place. I don't write on Medium nowadays, but yeah, I do write once in a while when I find some interesting ideas on the Freshsales blog. So if you guys some of the articles I've written are on the Freshsales blog, so you can go check it out over there. But I think LinkedIn is where you'd probably catch me day in and day out.
Nivas, it's been an absolute pleasure speaking to you today. You are a genius marketeer, clearly, and the way you think about B2B marketing and sales is exemplary. Thank you very much for your time today, and we wish you all the best for the future.
Thank you so much, Raj. It was a pleasure participating in this.